Okay, what I'm actually about to show is how to find what you're supposed to do for a thesis and perform black magic on an AP Literature and Composition prompt. The first order of business is actually to read the prompt. So as I'm looking at the prompt in front of me, which is from the 2007 test, it says, read carefully the following passage from Dalton Trumbo's novel, Johnny Got His Gun. Then write a well-organized essay in which you analyze how Trumbo uses such techniques as point of view, selection of detail, and syntax to characterize the relationship between the young man and his father. Now, reading the prompt is half the battle. The other half of the battle then is figuring out the task. What is the task that you must do in your thesis and for your entire essay in order to get a 5 or better? And we usually find that in the last sentence. And for us, it's going to be, then write a well-organized essay in which you analyze how Trumbo uses such techniques as point of view, selection of detail, and syntax in order to characterize the relationship between those two characters. So this is the big part that you've got to get done, and these are the little parts that they're looking for. So before I even read the article, the things that you've got to know ahead of time are, well, what point of view is it? Well, point of view can be first person omniscient, third person participant, those types of things. So you have to know the different kinds of points of view. The next thing is then the selection of detail. Well, that's pretty easy because then you can talk about just about anything, the adjectives used, the objects that are in the sentences, etc., the types of things that are said, or even the plot structures and things that happen, the events that happen. And then the last thing, which I think is the most difficult part of this prompt, is syntax, which syntax refers to the grammatical structures of the sentences in each of throughout the piece. And that's the hardest part, I think, for most students to analyze because you have to be able to use terms and parallel structure and see the punctuation marks and things like that. So now that you see the task, then that's going to guide your reading for what you're doing. Your thesis basically has to say, the relationship between the two characters is, insert descriptive phrase there, based upon the third person or whatever point of view, the types of details that were there, because it's going to be hard to list them all in your thesis, and the different syntactical structures. Now, you might be able to keep it general, or you might need to be specific. Perhaps in this case, being specific about the syntactical structures can wait until your body paragraph about syntactical structures. The same thing with the selections of detail and point of view, although these two ideas right here could probably be two of the paragraphs in the essay, and they can be combined together into some big idea, whereas this one will probably require its own set of examples and analysis. Now, that's just half the battle. So your thesis focuses on those things, but then your body paragraphs then always have to come back, because it's one thing to say the point of view is such and such a thing, but it's another one to say that that point of view contributes and shows such and such relationship. So with your body paragraphs, you've always got to come back to, well, why does the point of view the examples you put in there, go back to that relationship? Why does these details that you specifically analyze, come back to the relationship between the two characters? And if you were to do a paragraph, which you have to, about syntax and grammatical structures, why are those grammar structures important for understanding the relationship between the young man and his father? So then the next phase of this then is you know what you're looking for. You're looking for the point of view. You're looking for which details that you think are key that talk about the relationship between the young man and his father. And then I also kind of say the follow-up is come back to the sentence structures and the like that also lead to the young man and his father. So now let's do the active reading part. The campfire was built in front of the tent, and the tent was under an enormous pine. So I'm already kind of like suspicious because I'm the syntax person. I said the tent, and now the tent. So we went from A to B, and then we repeated B then to C. Now, just already going, oh look, there's a syntactical structure that I should worry about. The campfire was built in front of the tent, and the tent was under an enormous pine. So I see a little bit of repetition. I also see a syntactical relationship with how things are proximately related to each other. When you slept inside of the tent, it seemed always it was raining outside because the needles from the pine kept falling. Uh-oh, key point of view, the word you, that's automatically a second person point of view. So here we go. Inside the tent, it seemed to always raining outside because the needles from the pine kept falling. Just like rain. Seen that before. Sitting across from him and staring into the fire was his father. Each summer they came to this place, which was 9,000 feet high and covered with pine trees. Oh my goodness, if I see the word pine that many times, I would bet that that's one of the details that they want us to talk about. Same thing with the recurring image of fire here. They fished in the lakes, and when they slept at night, the roar of the water from the streams which connected the lakes sounded in their ears all night long. So now we're back to the images of nature, lakes. Lakes and water are usually a symbol of baptism or even of being cleansed. They had been coming to this place ever since he was 7. Now he was 15, and Bill Harper was going to come tomorrow. He sat in front of the fire and looked across at his father and wondered, looked across, which we just had that very same image, at his father and wondered just how he was going to tell him. It was a very serious thing. Tomorrow, for the first time in all their trips together, he wanted to go fishing with someone other than his father. On previous trips, the idea had never occurred to him. His father had always preferred his company. Now I kind of go back to this point of view because it's in third again, but we do have to put the reader into it, we have the second person point of view. So that's something I'm going to probably have to bring out in my body paragraph. All right, on previous trips, the idea had never occurred to him. His father had always preferred his company to that of other men, and he'd always preferred his father's company to that of the other guys. But now Bill Harper was coming, and now we come right back to that repetitive, but now Bill Harper was coming. Bill Harper was coming. So one of the syntactical structures that I'm going to definitely point out is the use of repetition. All right? So he wanted to go fishing with him. He knew something, etc., etc. Mind getting up early in the morning and meet Ben Harper. Now, what's interesting about this situation is that this is actual dialogue between the characters, but it was never punctuated as dialogue of the characters. And because it wasn't punctuated, it's a syntactical structure. So without the punctuation, now we're back into syntax. So that, I didn't read the entire thing because I don't need to, but now you see what you got to be thinking of as you're tackling the prompts. You're looking for clues to the types of details that are recurring. I don't think it's a coincidence that fire. Well, fires are always symbols of rebirth and life and death. It's like that cycle of it, the ashes, the phoenix, and all that kind of thing. So it's obvious then that the characters, the young man is growing out of the old mold of his father, and therefore when they're looking in the fire, they're looking at the ashes, and they're looking at the death of a relationship that they once had and how it's changed. So now we come back. Well, I pointed out the detail. Detail now goes back to the relationship. And that's essentially how you've got to be thinking when you're taking on a prompt of this magnitude. What do they want? What is the task? And then as you're reading it, find it, annotate it, circle it, look wherever it needs to be. And, you know, the details, that his father's rod was a very valuable one. He was going to be using it. Man, there's a lot of symbolism when we start talking about rods and hunting, etc. Nonetheless, that's how you've got to be thinking. So then the thesis focuses on those things, but it always comes back to that main task. Their relationship was created in this little brief thing that we read, and syntax contributed to it, the details that the author put in, and also the kind of shifting point of view that's there, all contributed to the changing relationship between the young man and his father.